we'll get straight into it if that's okay. So do we have any apologies, folks?
Your microphones aren't on.
That's fine. Repeat that. Yeah, we'll give them just turn the microphones so we go. Do you have any declarations of interest? I think so. No? Okay. Moving straight on to item 3. Pass that over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear that?
Yes.
Yeah. So as Cabinet will be aware, the Group Chief Legal Officer and the Monitoring Officer have left the organisation, and they've therefore been working with 2 specialist recruiters who work specifically with the sector and specialise in providing candidates for this type of role to identify the 2 proposed interim candidates that are set out in the report. You'll see for the Group Director of Finance and Resources role, the proposal is that we appoint Joe Moore as the interim candidate. So in Appendix 1 you've got the CV and references for Joe. For the Monitoring Officer role, the proposed interim candidate is Jodie Townsend, and again in Appendix 2 you have the CV and references for Jodie. Both candidates offer significant experience and expertise, and I believe are exactly what we need in terms of supporting the organisation on its improvement journey. You'll see in the report that the proposal is that both interim appointments are made for up to 12 months. Just to add a clarification to the report, the intention is that we move to recruit permanent post holders within the 12-month period. So I would propose that we start that process in broadly 6 months' time in early new year, which would then hopefully allow us to actually get those permanent appointments in place within the 12-month period. I sourced both of the candidates independently, as I said, through the recruiters, but I have engaged with Rob Whiteman, who you'll know is the chair of our independent advisory board, and coincidentally Rob has previously worked with Joe and is supportive of the interim appointment, and Jodie is well known to Helen Edwards, who is the Monitoring Officer for West Midlands Combined Authority and is also a member of the Independent Advisory Board, and Helen is supportive of the interim appointment of Jodie. The report also covers off the other 2 interim director arrangements we've currently got. So Cabinet is asked to know the continuation of Sarah Walker as Interim Director of Business Solutions and Julie Hurley as Interim Director of Infrastructure. And you'll see in the report that we are proposing that the process of recruiting both of those permanent roles starts in September and is brought back to Cabinet in December for a decision, and that would follow the same process that we have followed for the recent Director of Inward Investment and Marketing role. Finally, in terms of the cost, so you'll see in the report the cost of the interim arrangements for up to 12 months, and we may not need them for 12 months, is $204,000 plus the agency fees, and just to be clear, they are the fees to the 2 recruiters who sourced the proposed interim candidates, and they are set out in Appendix 3. And the proposal in terms of how we fund the additional cost is that you'll see in the report we have incurred significant spend on external legal governance advice, and I am confident we can reduce that spend with these new arrangements, and the additional cost will be covered by saving on that budget. So I'll pause there, Chair, happy to take comments, questions.
Okay, we'll open up to anybody for comments or questions. Very good.
Is that on?
It might be, flip the switch up, yeah. By the bottom. At the bottom there's a grey button at the bottom of the microphone. It looks like a light, but it's not. Who's that? Oh, one second.
Yeah, thanks Tom for that. I think that the process has been done very, very well. I think that going out to agencies to get the best interims we can is very good. So I'm really sort of pleased with that. Just for clarification, and you have said it, but just for clarification, we now have 4 interim, or we would have 4 interim directors, which within the next 12 months will be resolved as being actual directives. That's just for clarification.
Yeah, absolutely, Brendan. I think we want to move towards getting obviously a permanent top team in place as quickly as possible, but I think it's obviously got to be done in a sort of balanced and measured way. So the proposal would be initially that in September we start the process for the Director of Infrastructure and Business Solutions, bring that back to Cabinet in December, and then early in the new year start the process for the Group Finance and Resources Director and the Monitoring Officer. So hopefully within the 12 months we'd have all 4 permanent positions appointed to.
Will that have any impact on how long we're until we lift the best value norms in terms of the length of time we've got that many interim directors?
There's not a direct correlation, Alec. Obviously, government want to see us making the necessary improvements, and they will want to see a plan towards permanency, as I've discussed with Eric and the experience in Middlesbrough. But I think the quality of the interims that I'm putting forward to Cabinet, I think, as I say, has been talked through with the board, the Independent Advisory Board, who are obviously critical in terms of their role with government, and they're supportive of them. And I've made it clear, obviously, that we need to make sure that these interims not only deal with the here and now, but also transition us into that permanency. So they've got that dual role. So I want to make sure that when we do go out for the permanent roles, there's an absolute transition from these interim arrangements into those permanent roles. So it's obviously at the forefront of my mind, Alec, but it doesn't directly impact on our ability to make the necessary improvements. If anything, the experience that the 2 interims bring in the short term, I think, will be a real added value to the organisation.
Okay, so with a good when was the ETA for all these to be permanent? I know you just said so.
Yeah, so sorry, for the Director of Business Solutions and Infrastructure, we would start the process in September and bring that back to Cabinet in December.
Is that for all 4, yeah?
That's for the 2.
Right.
And then I'm proposing that we would start the process for the Group Director of Finance and Resources and the Monitoring Officer earlier in the new year, and then probably bring that back to a Cabinet in the spring.
So we'll go to March, April time. And if I could just go on record as a portfolio and say Sarah Wall has been fantastic in the months I've been working with us, so just go on record.
Thanks, Alec.
Yeah, no, that's put through a process point of view. I'll ask, we could always arrange an additional meeting, but unless a process was started, I think very, very early January, we'd probably miss what will end up being the March Cabinet meeting to recruit the permanent replacement for the Monitoring Officer and FD, which then probably takes you to June. But again, we could discuss that collectively and decide actually we want it to be sooner than June, so maybe we could put an extra meeting in April or May or whatever you think is appropriate. So I just want to flag that from a process point of view. There currently won't be a scheduled meeting. So again, that's the flag that Tom's giving us. We need to take that away as leaders collectively and probably set some timelines for when we would like to see that happen, which then Tom can work back from and say, right, the process needs to be triggered in January or February to be able to meet the deadline that we set.
And would any of that have any impact on the development corporations in terms of the recommendations that because if it was now done, other interims are going to have to sort of spread that through the development corporations as well? I'm just wondering, with an STDC, how what impact, if any, that would have?
Yes, there's probably 2 parts to that, Alex. So obviously the interims, currently as it works, whilst they're employed by TVCA, they would provide group support services across the 3 male development corporations. But I know that John, as Chief Exec of SDDC, is looking at what support he might want to consider going forward. But certainly in the short term, these post holders will continue to provide support to SDDC and the other 2 development corporations.
Yeah, I'd absolutely advocate for the development corporations to be standalone in terms of just for the capacity issues that we've seen in the past across them offices.
I suppose it's worth putting on record here, Vital Development Corporations being each of the 3 development corporations have actioned the officers of the development corporations to look at that individual capacity. So there will be reports going back to the next development corporations meetings, both the Hartlepool, Middlesbrough and South Tees Development Corporation, where the officers will be recommending a way forward, whether that is to continue the collective buying of services or whether to separate out. So that's something that as a cabinet, with our cabinet hat on, we need to think about moving forward. But as Tom's rightly said, you know, if these are people who are approved and coming in the coming days, then in that very short term they will fulfil that role. Chris?
I've already outlined some of my stuff in the email, which I won't sort of go over. But I think what does concern me a little bit is there's a verbal process that you've just articulated that actually isn't written anywhere. So I almost feel like if there was some sort of noting that a process will start in the new year, maybe even putting it as January, which is not beyond the realms of man. I just think that then is documented as well, isn't it? And we can, and that's put too fine a point, but that's a way of holding you to account as well to make sure that process doesn't go off the rails.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. I think we should capture it as an action in the minutes. That was always my intention. It wasn't, I guess, explicit in the report, but thank you for your comments, Chris, and I think that's absolutely right, because I absolutely agree. We want to move to permanency at the right point. We want to get those permanent appointments in place as quickly as we can, but they also need to be the right appointments. And I think just giving it that time until the new year when we start that process is the right way to go, but we should capture that as an action in the minutes.
Yes, I'm just checking now. So I think formally, as leaders, we'll note in the report that we would expect to see the start of a process presented to Cabinet at the Cabinet meeting on the 30th of January, which would be the Cabinet meeting. But people are happy to note that at the start of the process, which in effect would the process would come to Cabinet. It would be the same as Thomas said with the Investment Director, but I suppose formal sign up of that process in January for it to start the day after, to open to recruitment, etc. That gives everybody a clear timeline from then on if leaders are happy. Yeah. So we'll make sure that that's noted as an action, please.
And just in terms of the process that we would start in September for the business solutions and infrastructure directors, obviously we'll do some work around making sure the right people are on the right panels, and that, like we did with the previous process, that we've got the right balance across the panels. So we'll pick that up outside of this meeting as well.
But I suppose again, just to follow up from Chris's point for clarity of process, are we agreeing in effect to say that's happening, or will the actual process for the business director come back to Cabinet in September for approval and then it kicks off? What would you prefer to, so we're clear on
I think it would be good if we could agree it today, and obviously we could do some work outside of this meeting to make sure the right people are on the panels, as I said, and then we can probably start it mid-September, and then that'll give us time to report back to Cabinet in December.
Do leaders have a view on that? People happy with that as a process? Yeah. So we're following the same process as the investment director, same panel, same recruitment process, same long listing, short listing, so it's going to mirror that entirely. But obviously over the coming weeks, we'll fill out who's going to be on between us.
The process will be exactly the same. I think the people on the different panels will be different given the specialisms for those roles.
Yeah, Lisa?
Can I just double check something there, Tom? So will that be done in consultation with the leaders, or are we delegating for you to arrange that?
I think we should do it in consultation, Lisa, so you're all comfortable with. I mean, the process will mirror what we did previously, but I think there'll be some discussion around who sits on what panel, so we should do that and agree that collaboratively.
That's fine, thanks.
So we'll take that as an action as well. That'll be done in consultation if people are happy. Any other comments or questions?
Just on the, sorry.
That's
Just
right.
on the pipelines and whatever that we're working on at the time, has there been any sort of handover? I'm just conscious, Gary was at a couple of conversations with our officers on a few issues. Well, it's got a bit quiet, and I appreciate he's had other things on to try and resolve it. So could somebody pick up with Brian and the officer just on some of the things that we were discussing?
Yeah, absolutely, Alec. Yeah, we've obviously got arrangements in place to make sure our business as usual carries on, but I'll pick up a conversation with Brian to pick that up.
Anything else? No? So if there's not anything else, are people happy to approve the two recommended candidates and note the other three items in the recommendations? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else. Next meeting is the 26th of September. As we say, I think it might be worth Tom getting either an online meeting or some sort of meeting in the diary when it is appropriate to make sure we consult with everybody for the business directorate position. And unless there's anything else. Enjoy the next couple of weeks. If you do get a bit of a break over August, I don't know whether you guys will. And I'll speak to you. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you very much.